Hello, I'm AJ Hoge. Welcome to our bonus thank you webinar. And this webinar is for you because you helped us. You filled out a survey on our website, and you answered some questions about our website to help us improve the Effortless English Club.com website. And I thank you for that. I'm very grateful for your help. In order to improve, we need some feedback, and it's very useful, very helpful to hear your ideas, hear your opinions about how we can improve Effortless English. So again, thank you so much, and this is my small gift to you, this webinar, as a way to say thank you. So thanks again for helping, and thanks for helping with our survey and giving us some ideas on how we can improve. Now, because you helped us improve by giving your ideas, giving information about how we can improve Effortless English, I thought that today's topic should be constant and never-ending improvement, because improvement is, whoops, excuse me, I just hit the camera. Improvement is something we all want in our lives. You probably want to improve your English speaking ability and your understanding of English. And you probably have other areas of your life that you want to improve. We all do. I want to improve Effortless English. I want to improve my health and fitness. We all have things we want to improve. Improvement is a part of life. And usually we feel very satisfied when we are improving. Let me begin with a story about something I did many years ago. I trained for a marathon. A marathon is about 26 miles. It's a race, a running race. Most people know. I think kilometers, that's about 40 kilometers, something like that. And this was many years ago. And when I trained for this marathon, my first marathon, of course I had never run that far before, not even close. In fact, before the marathon, my longest run was probably 4 or 5 miles, maybe 6. So I needed to run 26 miles. But at that time, I could only run 5 or 6 at most. So I had to train, of course. I needed to practice and train. I needed to improve my running ability, my endurance, my fitness, to achieve 26 miles, and to do it fairly quickly. So this was a big goal, a big task. How did I do this? Well, I got a lot of information. I read a lot of books about how to train for a marathon. And I decided to follow one program. And this was a program of constant and never-ending improvement. In other words, it was a program that focused on very tiny, small improvements. What I did is I continued running the same amount as usual. So during the week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I used to run around 3 miles, 3 or 4. I continued to do that. And then I had a run on Sundays. And my Sunday run each week, I increased by 1 mile every week. So in other words, my total weekly running increased only by 1 mile per week. So every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I continued running the same amount. Only on Sunday did I run a little more. But I only added 1 mile each week. So, for example, in week 1, I ran for 4 miles. And then in week 2, I ran 5 miles on Sunday only. And then the next week, 6 miles on Sunday, and etc., etc., etc. It's okay, you can't, yeah. My wife was just asking me a question. So it was a very, very small, tiny, gradual improvements. 1 mile per week just on Sundays. Following this program for about I think it was about 4 months. Let me see. No, I'm sorry. It was probably closer to 5 or 6 months that I followed this program, very gradually building my miles, tiny amount each week. And by doing this, I completed my first marathon, and I finished it in under 4 hours, which was my goal. Now let me tell you a different story about a friend of mine named Mike. Mike also wanted to run a marathon. Mike was not a big runner. He ran a little bit, probably less than me when he started. Now Mike wanted to make progress very fast. So what did Mike do? Well, he wasn't running very much, and then he suddenly started training hard. So he started going out and he started running 4, 5, 6 miles. And then each week he tried to increase his running by 2 or more miles every day. I only increased my miles by 1 each Sunday, but every run for him, he made it longer. Another difference, when I was training, I ran very slowly. In fact, every 10 minutes I stopped and I walked for maybe 30 seconds or 60 seconds to rest a little bit, and then I started jogging slowly again. So I was training very slowly most of the time. Mike was running very hard. So he was trying to make big, fast improvements, and he was doing it very aggressively. What happened with Mike? He injured himself. His knee started hurting him. It got worse and worse and worse. And finally, he just stopped. He quit. He blamed running. He said, "Oh, running, I can't run because my knee's bad, and the problem is running's not good for me. It's not good for your knees." But I believe that the true problem was his approach, his method. He tried to improve very, very quickly. He wanted to make big, sudden improvements. Whereas I focused on very tiny, gradual improvements over time. So my approach was constant and never-ending improvement, tiny improvements over a long time. And Mike's approach was sudden improvement. And Mike injured himself and was not able to ever run a marathon, and I ended up running 2 marathons. So I think that these are good stories because they show the principle of constant and never-ending improvement. Constant and never-ending improvement really means tiny, gradual improvements. It means focusing on the small instead of the big. That is tough in our modern day. Why? Because most people have a big attraction to fast, sudden change. Right? With the media, with TV, with the internet. We're trained to want everything quickly, fast, now. So the idea of small, tiny changes over a long time, it's not so interesting to us. It's not as attractive. We think that, we can make a sudden big change now. Sometimes, yes, it's possible to make a sudden big change. However, it's much more effective to focus on small, gradual changes, constant and never-ending improvement. So let's talk about this idea, small, gradual changes. In fact, great skill, great mastery, great ability comes from constant and never-ending improvement. It comes from small, tiny changes over a long time. The first key to constantly improving is consistency. Consistency means doing the same thing or something similar again and again and again, every day, every week, every month, every year. Consistency is not exciting, but it's super effective. Let's look at my marathon training example again. I was very consistent, meaning every week I did basically the same thing. On Monday, I ran 3 or 4 miles. On Wednesday, I ran 3 or 4 miles. On Friday, I ran 3 or 4 miles. Every single week. On Sunday, I ran a little bit longer and only added 1 mile per week. Little by little by little. Very consistent. Every week was very similar. And I increased only very slowly over time, but it was consistent improvement. That consistent improvement helped me achieve success. My friend Mike was not consistent. So in the beginning, he was not running much. Then suddenly he tried to run a lot. Then he got tired and hurt, and he stopped running. Then he tried to come back too fast and run hard again. So he would sometimes try to train very hard, sometimes not. Some weeks he was running a lot and many miles, some weeks not much at all. It was very inconsistent. And therefore, he got injured and he never achieved success. Well, this is true in most areas of life, not only running marathons. We find this same principle is important, is powerful for everything, including learning English. Another key thing, besides consistency, is to focus on tiny improvements. Tiny, very, very small improvements. In fact, the improvements are so small, they're almost unnoticeable. So again, with my running example, each week my improvement was super small. Only 1 mile for the whole week did I add. That's not much for a runner. And so in 1 week, I really did not notice much improvement. So I was only adding 1 mile per week. I was not trying to run faster. I was not pushing myself to run faster. So each week, I really did not notice an improvement. The improvements came after a month, or 2 months, or 3 months. That's when I could look back and realize, oh wow, I now have made a big improvement. I'm running much longer now. This is also what makes constant and never-ending improvement psychologically difficult. Meaning that when you're making tiny improvements, each day or each week, you really don't notice them. So it's easy to become discouraged. You think, oh, what's happening? Nothing's much happening. I'm not really improving very much. And so some people get discouraged, like my friend Mike. He thinks, oh, it's not enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not improving fast enough. And so he tries to suddenly do much, much more. The danger of doing that is that when you do too much, your body or your brain can become tired. For English, for example, some people get very worried, oh, I'm not improving my English fast enough, oh no, and so they try to do more and more and more. I'm going to study lots of grammar rules. I'm going to listen 6 hours a day. I'm going to do only English all the time. That's great if you enjoy it and if it's fun and relaxing for you. But if it's stressful, and for many people that is stressful, then you just get tired. So what happens is people, they do all this extra work, but then after 1 month or a few weeks or a few months, they get tired, they get burned out. They get tired of English. And then what do? Then they quit totally. They lose their motivation, And so in fact, over the long term, they actually improve more slowly. They make a sudden improvement maybe, or they make a strong effort, but then they stop making an effort because they're tired or discouraged. And it's kind of up and down too much. So it's not consistent. So they really do not achieve long-term success. See, the power of small improvements is similar to compounding. Compounding happens with money and in business. So for example, if you have $100, you put it in a bank, at least in the past, you could get a good interest rate if you get 5% interest on that money. Well, then after 1 month or 1 year, it's a tiny improvement, $5 maybe. So that's very, very small. But then the next year, you gain 5% again, but this time it's added to $105. So now the improvement is actually a little bigger. Still seems like nothing. But over the years, that money will grow and grow and grow and grow. And the growth gets faster and faster, bigger and bigger. That's compounding. Most people understand this with money. Well, it also works for many other skills, many other areas, including your English ability. That's why making tiny little improvements consistently will actually give you very big improvements over time in 6 months or 1 year or 5 years. So the key is consistency and consistent little improvements. Don't get so worried and focused on big improvements, sudden improvements. Just keep focusing on little tiny improvements each week. How can you specifically do this? Well, number one, listen and learn deeply, as I say in the 7 rules. So listen to English, fairly easy English. For example, our lessons or my podcast or the recording of this webinar even. Don't just listen one time, listen many times. Each time you listen to the audio, you'll understand a little bit better. You might not notice the improvement. It might be so small you really don't notice it each time. And yet, when you repeat an audio 7 times or 14 times or 30 times, you actually are improving a little bit each time, and the improvement gets better and better and better. The same is true of daily listening, just focusing on listening to English 1 or 2 hours every day, understanding a little bit more, listening a little more carefully, using a little more energy when you listen. Walking, having your shoulders back, smiling, little small tiny changes and improvements. Again, probably you will not notice immediately. You'll think, nothing much is happening. But after months of doing this, the improvements will start to grow and get faster and bigger, faster and bigger. This is the power of constant and never-ending improvement. Okay, let's take a look at our chat. You notice there's a chat box on the right side. There should be a chat box that you're looking at, and you can ask me a question if you like on the chat box. So I'll put a little chat. Hello, everyone. And I'll post it. So you should see a little chat from me. Hello, everyone. So if you have a question for me about constant improvement or improving or anything really, now's your chance. You can type it in this chat box. I'll read the chats and I'll pick some questions and answer them for you. So let's take a look if we have any, and if not, let me talk a little more while we're waiting on questions about constant and never-ending improvement. I think the important part here is the psychology, and that is that you need to relax a little bit. I know that I've done this myself with certainly with languages like Spanish, for example, and in other areas of my life where I get very impatient and I want big improvement now, now, now. And then I get very motivated for a short time, and then I lose my motivation. But what I've noticed is that when I just relax and focus on enjoying the moment more, enjoying the process more, focusing on now, then I actually improve better over time. It's kind of strange. It's a weird thing because in some ways we need big goals because they inspire us. They get us moving towards action. That's great. However, for really big long-term goals, it is often helpful to sort of write them down and then forget about them a little bit and focus instead on today or this week, and just on the little tiny improvement you want to make this week, and just on enjoying that each week, and not worrying too much about the big goal. You have the big goal, it's kind of like a compass, it's pointing you in the direction you want to go. That's good. However, you don't get too worried, too upset about that big goal. You know, it's off in the distance right now. So you're going to just relax and focus on little tiny improvements each week, enjoying those. That's all. And often, taking this more relaxed, short-term, small improvement focus actually will help you make bigger improvements. It's interesting. Why? I don't know. It's just kind of a psychological trick sometimes that you need to make on yourself by sort of, okay, I'm not going to worry about the big goal too much. I'm going to focus right now on making these little small improvements each week and enjoying it. Very important, enjoying it. So let me give you another comparison. When I was, this is a huge distinction, a huge and important idea. When I was training for that marathon, I was enjoying myself each week much more than my friend Mike. Because number one, because I was making tiny, small improvements, it was not stressful. My body wasn't hurting. You know, I was only adding a little bit each week. So, you know, on Sunday when I did the longer runs, at the end of that run, when I added the mile, I might feel a little more tired, a little more sore, but not so much. It was still very easy and pleasant and enjoyable for me. On the other hand, my friend Mike, who was going out and running really hard and fast and adding miles quickly, he was constantly under stress, his body and his mind. He had to push himself with a lot of willpower to fight through the pain and the difficulty. And his body was hurting all the time. Even before he was injured, his muscles were sore, he's breathing and struggling for air because he's running too hard. So the process for me was much more enjoyable, therefore I did not quit. Therefore, I achieved my long-term goal. The process for Mike was painful and stressful and difficult. Therefore, he eventually quit. Therefore, he did not achieve his goal. Interesting. Okay, let's look at some questions because we have some questions coming in now. Julia says, hi, hello, Julia, hi. Let's see, hi to everybody. Okay, so here's a good point. Let me make this point right now because someone just wrote this. Well, first let's go. Let's just take these one by one. Jesus says, I'd like to start speaking, but I'm a little bit afraid. What to do? Okay, we can take this same approach of little tiny improvements with speaking. Now, as you know, I recommend that you mostly focus on listening. However, eventually you will want to speak. That's the great thing. As you listen more and more, you start getting more of a desire to speak. Now, when you first start, it can feel stressful. Oh, you're worried about making a mistake. Maybe someone will not understand me. Oh, no. I know because I felt the same way with Spanish. I was very nervous about speaking Spanish. I was happy to listen, but I didn't want to speak. So how do you solve this? You just make a tiny little step. You don't need to suddenly jump in and try to have long conversations and use big long sentences and talk about difficult topics. That's the sudden approach. Don't do that. Instead, what can you do? Find a conversation partner or a friend who speaks English or another Effortless English member and start with just a little 10-minute chat. 10 minutes only. Once a week even. 10 minutes. And during this chat, do not talk about difficult subjects. Talk about easy things, everyday things. Where are you from? What do you like to do? What's your favorite movie? Simple, simple, simple. Also, when you first start speaking, it's okay, use just 2 words, use 1 word, use 3 words. That's how I speak Spanish right now. I have my friend Oscar in Spain. We talk every week. But I still really cannot use full sentences in Spanish. Oops, sorry about the camera again. I'm not comfortable yet. I just don't have the ability to use full long sentences. So I use, a noun and a verb. I'll just 2 words or 3 words. And when I'm using verbs, usually I'm using the wrong verb tense. Okay? I mean, I remember the present tense more because I got that in school a lot. So sometimes I'll talk about the past, but I use the present. It doesn't matter. Oscar still understands me. Okay? I'm very excited because I'm now communicating a little bit in Spanish. Because of that, my confidence is now higher. I used to be afraid to speak at all. Now I'm more excited to speak in Spanish, even very simple Spanish. And of course, as I continue doing this, I'll make little tiny improvements each month and get a little better, a little better, a little better. That's what you also can do with your English speaking. So just little tiny improvements and enjoy it. All right, let's. Julia says, I'd like to improve English massively. Okay. Actually, I will be doing a VIP topic on how to do a big sudden. It is possible, but it's not easy, and it's not comfortable, and in fact can be very, very stressful. And big, massive, sudden changes are not sustainable. Usually. In other words, we can't just keep doing them again and again. You might have a period of 3 months where you really can make a big change, a big improvement. But then eventually you got to take a break, you got to rest. So big improvements are possible, yes, but over the long term, this gradual process is more effective. All right, let's see. What other questions do we have coming in? Hola desde España. Hello, Maria. How can I improve my vocabulary faster? Once again, I know it's hard to understand because we all want faster, 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 faster. I understand it. I want that too. And yet, many times, the fastest way to improve to not focus on speed. See, it's called a paradox in English. A paradox is something that seems like it's the opposite of what it should be. The marathon training was a paradox. My friend Mike thought, if I want to run longer and I want to run faster, then I must train harder and run faster now. That was the thinking. It seems obvious, but he was wrong. Because if you run too fast now, if you focus on speed too much now, you actually hurt and damage your long-term success. Sometimes faster is slower. On the other hand, when I was training for the marathon, I focused on running slow. I actually made myself run more slowly. I could have run faster. I had the ability, but I didn't want to. Why? Because I knew I was training for the long term. I ran more slowly. I improved more slowly. And yet, over time, about 6 months' time or 5 months' time, I actually made a bigger improvement than Mike. It's interesting. Well, this is true of vocabulary too. Instead of focusing on, oh, I gotta learn my vocabulary, how many words do I know? Am I learning, how can I learn more words per day? That just makes you stressed out. Eventually that kills your motivation. And that will actually cause you to learn and improve more slowly. You know what is actually more effective? Just focus on reading more interesting things, listening to more interesting things, doing it consistently every day. That will improve your vocabulary faster over time. Read lots of different books on topics you love and enjoy. Easy novels, magazines, short stories, nonfiction books, websites. Listen to easy audio about topics you love, your hobbies, events in the world, places you want to travel, television, movies, all these kind of things, audiobooks. When you do this, you get more focused on the topics that you love, on what's actually being said, and you don't focus so much on the language, on English. And when you focus more on the topics and enjoying the topics and loving the topics, the vocabulary learning seems to happen automatically. It's much more fun and more effective. And it's actually faster in the long run. So you have to think, language learning, English, is a marathon, right? You have to approach it like a marathon. It's not a sprint, okay? Just doing a lot in 1 week really is not that effective, because what about next week and next week? It takes months and years to master English. So just doing a lot in 1 month or 1 week, it's not very effective long term. All right, let's go. My goal speaking English. Okay, and I'm gonna. Okay, so here's a great. This is a great question and a great example. Naynad asks, my goal is to speak English like a native speaker, or like it's my native language, is actually the question. And my deadline, my goal, is 2 years. What do you think about this goal and deadline? Is it real? So here's the thing about goals. Again, think of a goal as a compass. Is that a good goal? Yeah, I think that's a pretty good goal. But don't become a prisoner to your goal. That's the point. As I said, get the goal, think of it, that's what you want, and then after you decide on that goal, you need to push it to the side a little bit and not worry about it too much. I mean, if you don't do it in 2 years, instead it takes 3 years, that's not really a big deal, honestly, because you're still going to make a big improvement. Let's again compare it to marathon running because it's so clear. When I was training for the marathon, if I focused every day on 26 miles, the final goal, I would have lost my motivation. Right? If I'm only running 6 miles and I thought, oh, I'm only running 6 miles today, this sucks. I need to run 26, it's too far. I would have gotten very worried and upset. I'm not improving fast enough. I'll never run 26. Oh my God. And if I worried, I had a goal for 3 months, and after 3 months, I still could not run 26 miles, but maybe I could run 15, that's still a huge improvement. So instead of getting worried and upset because my exact goal was not achieved, I just realized, okay, it's a compass. It's pointing me. So if you can't do it in 2 years, push the goal back a little bit. Who knows? Maybe you'll do it sooner than 2 years. Goals are very useful and powerful, but they need to be flexible. Especially the big goals. They're kind of there, you're moving towards them, and then push them to the side and focus on now. Okay, here we go. Let's keep going with some questions. Jesus again is talking about our forum. Can we improve our English speaking level talking to friends? Certainly you can. Definitely. Yeah, I talked to Steve Kaufman about this a couple of weeks ago. Steve Kaufman, if you don't know him, speaks 13 languages. A very interesting guy. And we were talking about speaking, and I just read this in his book. I'm reading his book right now in Spanish. And he says the same thing. If you're listening to audios of native speakers, which you should, your audio listening should be native speakers always. So every day you're listening to native speakers. Your input, your listening is from native speakers, always, always, always. And when you're reading, also reading from native speakers, writers who are native speakers, Americans, British, Australian, etc. Then when you practice just chatting with someone, you're just practicing your speaking, you're getting more comfortable talking. You can talk to anybody who speaks English. They can be from another country, they can also be learning English. It's fine, because you're not talking to them for listening practice. You're not using them for pronunciation. You're just practicing communication, getting more comfortable communicating in English, communicating your thoughts in English. So it's fine, definitely. Talk to other members, talk to other learners. That's fine. But when you listen each day, listen to native speakers only. Okay, let's keep going with our questions. Lots of good questions. These are great. Okay, let me keep reading. Now Julia says her goal is to speak English with native speakers, and of course that's fine too. I'm not saying don't do it. If you can speak to a native speaker who's patient, then do it. See, the problem is, if you talk to me, I'm quite patient. I've been teaching English a long time, so that's great. But if you talk to a native speaker and they don't want to help you, if maybe your English level's a little bit lower, then it's better to talk to another learner. Let me give you an example in Spanish. So again, I talked to Oscar, my friend Oscar. He's very patient with me. He waits. I'm very slow to speak Spanish, and I make mistakes, and my pronunciation's not great. So he's patient, and he lets me take my time. He's very good. He's a good person for me to practice with. But maybe another native speaker might not be. Just some person from Mexico, for example, if they were not patient, maybe they get frustrated by my terrible Spanish, and then they might make me feel bad because they're, oh yeah, come on, I don't understand you. If that person you don't want to talk to, not until you're ready. So you have to choose your native speakers carefully. Now Julia has a very high level of English, so I know Julia well, so she could talk to any native speaker just fine, no problem. So that's fine. If your level is quite high already, yeah, go find people to chat with. But if your level is not so high, if your speaking confidence is low, then choose carefully. Maybe start with other members, other learners first. And then find a native speaker who's very patient. And then finally, you can talk to anybody. The point is really just protecting your own psychology. Some people are very sensitive, and they get sensitive if the other person seems impatient. I'm like that, honestly. Other people don't care. They're just very outgoing and extroverted, and they don't care. That's fine. So you have to know yourself. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's another question. Now this is about improvement again, but now with writing and reading. How can I improve writing and reading skills? Because I study at college and I have to write essays. Okay, now this is a tough challenge, honestly. I think the same approach is true. In other words, slow, gradual, little by little, consistent. How do you consistently improve with writing? My best suggestion is to write a blog. So get a little website, a free WordPress site or whatever, any blog is fine. And every day, write in English. And if you're in college, here's a great thing. every day, I'm guessing every day you go to a class. You go to class, you take notes. So for your writing practice, come home and write a little blog post, a little small article, a few paragraphs only, in English about one of your classes, what you learned. You could just summarize what you learned, or you could write your opinion about what you learned. Doesn't really matter. Mostly it's just practicing communicating and writing. Use short, simple sentences. No need for long sentences. And do it every single day. Consistent, remember? Now again, after 1 week, will you see a big improvement? No, probably not. But week after week, day after day doing this, you will get better and better with your writing. It's interesting. The other thing you can do, if you're in a school environment, then you can read essays in English. Read good essays in English. Not academic professor writing. That's terrible. Professors are terrible writers mostly. Not, I can't say all. There are probably some good ones out there, but mostly professors and academic people, university people, they're just terrible writers. So if you want to read essays, read editorials in newspapers and magazines. Those are basically essays. You could read classic essays from the past in English. Ralph Waldo Emerson, for example, an American writer from the past, he wrote many famous essays. He'd be a good one to read. Mark Twain also wrote essays and newspaper articles. So read newspaper articles, read editorials, things like that, and copy the style a little bit, but mostly write a little bit every day. You'll get better. All right. Okay. Okay, Nainad says, in my opinion, it's very important to feel every simple sentence and its parts. Yeah, I agree. Simple sentences are best. I don't know why, but in schools, even in English programs, like English as a foreign language, English as a second language, when they teach writing, they often encourage students to use very complicated sentences, long sentences with many parts and many clauses, and it's not necessary. You can communicate very well with short, direct sentences. In fact, you usually will communicate better, more clearly, more forcefully, more persuasively, using short, direct sentences. It's the best way to write. Hemingway's a good example. Now he wrote novels, so his language sometimes is still a little complicated, but still he was famous for a very direct style of writing, using shorter, more direct sentences. So Hemingway's a nice one to look at for that. You can write even more simply than Hemingway. Just write very short, direct sentences. Say what you want directly. You don't need to have all this other stuff. It doesn't need to sound intellectual. Does not need to sound complicated. Just deliver the information or your opinion directly, clearly. That's the best writing. And that's true for native speakers as well. It's true for myself. Okay, let's keep going. Good. These are good questions. This is fantastic. Okay, Ula says, I started learning English many years ago, but I never learned to speak, just to read and write. That's a common problem. But you, AJ, have helped me a lot. By listening to you, my speaking has improved. I'm not so brave now, but I'm on my way. Fantastic. So see, there's a great success story. And again, it's a constant and never-ending improvement. You just keep one foot after the other. Keep taking little steps. It's not exciting. I know it's not exciting. It doesn't seem so cool and exciting and amazing. Like, oh, I suddenly made a huge improvement in 2 weeks. But it's the best way overall, long term. Keep going forward, step by step by step. And you will improve. I get impatient too. I'm a very impatient person. My wife will tell you this. Yes, Tomoe-chan? Yeah. She says yes. I'm very impatient. So I have to remind myself of this all the time. For example, with our business. So our business goes up and down, and of course I want to improve it. And of course I want to get a lot of new members. I want to grow the business very quickly. But I have to remind myself again and again and again that the best way is little improvements. Just make little improvements. That's why we did the survey that you answered and helped us with, because we want to get ideas for little improvements. You all gave very good ideas about how to make improvements or what problems you have with our website. Most of them were not huge. They're not really, really big, but they're lots of little things. So we improve the little things, step by step, little by little. And it gets a little better. And then we make little improvements in other areas. And then we keep improving other little areas, little by little by little by little. And then in a year's time, in 2 years, in 5 years, they all add to something very big. And the only reason this is difficult is that we don't see it. We don't see it now. Right? We have a short-term focus. We only really see or think about this week or this month. And nothing seems to happen very fast because, oh, this month the change was only small. And then we get impatient, and then we become inconsistent, and then we cause ourselves a lot of problems. So if you can just remain consistent and enjoy the little improvements, you will achieve big, big, big success. Okay, here's another question, which is just about our lessons. It says, are your VIP lessons similar to Power English? Similar topics, yes, that's right. The VIP focuses on leadership topics, success topics, career improvement topics, those kind of things, personal improvement, personal growth, especially leadership. And it's a very powerful program. I think the VIP program is my favorite. It's my favorite because we have a nice, really strong connection, a strong group, a strong community there. The lessons are great, I think, but even more importantly, the community, the group is fantastic. Okay, let's keep going with questions. Okay, here's another good point. This is a good question because I want to stress this some more. Because I'm interested in writing as well. This is from Ahmed. It forces me to learn something which is to write about myself, such as qualifications, objectives, trying to improve it, all that. This sounds kind of like resume writing, that kind of thing. That's fine. I would encourage you, though, to do the blog idea. If you want to write about your career, that's fine. You can choose any topic, but write about it every day. And write whatever you feel like writing that day. So you don't only... Resume writing is a strange kind of writing. If you're writing a resume, or some countries call it a CV, it's not really a normal writing. It's not normal communication at all. It's a very special kind of writing, as you probably know. So for a resume or a CV, I recommend just find a book. There are a lot of them out there. Find a good resume book and just follow what they say, because it's kind of a formula, really. In our Business English lessons, Business English Conversations, .com, we do talk about resume writing and how to do it powerfully. But the style of writing a resume is it's not normal writing. So just write a resume and get someone else, get a native speaker to fix your mistakes so it sounds good, and then just leave it. That's all. Okay. Don't focus all your writing practice on resumes, in other words. Okay, here's another question about our lessons. I'll finish Power English in 2 months. What should I do after that? I would say join the VIP program. I think that the VIP program is the best addition to Power English. Some people do them at the same time, Power English and VIP. Some people do VIP after Power English. You could even do VIP before Power English, or doesn't matter. But I think the best graduation from Power English is VIP. You could also add Learn Real English or Business English if you wanted to. It's up to you. Depends on your goals. But for most people, I recommend VIP as the next step. All right, again, I'm answering questions on the chat box. So you'll see on the right side, I think it's on your right side, there's a little chat box, and you just type in your question or comment there, and I'll be happy to answer it. So I'll give you a minute to type out your question or about improvement, about English, about anything. This is your webinar because you helped me with the survey. I thank you for that. So write anything you want while I take a drink of water. Okay, next question. Good question. I like this question. When I speak with native speakers, nobody corrects my mistakes. Well, thank God. Do you think I will improve, however? Do you think I should ask them because they may not want to be rude? No, no, no. Don't ask a native speaker to correct your mistakes. Do not do that. Hell no. Okay, I'll tell you several reasons why. Reason number one, they don't want to correct your mistakes. They don't want to be your English teacher. They want to talk to you. They want to know you as a person. They want to hear your ideas and your feelings. They want to tell you their ideas and feelings. If you ask them to correct your mistakes, it kills the social connection. They will want to avoid you. Believe me, this happened to me in Korea when I was teaching English in Korea. Many Koreans were very motivated to learn English. That's great. However, people were constantly trying to become my friend only to practice English. It was obvious. They wanted me to correct their mistakes, and so at the time I felt like annoyed by that. I didn't like it. I thought they don't want to be my friend. They're not really my friend. They don't want to talk to me. They just want free English lessons. So I just avoided them. So don't do that. If you have an opportunity to talk to native speakers, just talk to them. It's a great opportunity. Be their friend or be their coworker, whatever. Just be a human being and chat and ask questions. It's such a great opportunity. And with the native speaker, focus mostly on listening, not on your own mistakes. Don't worry about your own speaking so much. You have a chance to listen to them. You learn by listening to them. You'll learn new words from them. You'll learn new phrases from them. Your pronunciation will get better by listening to them. So just focus and really listen to them carefully and enjoy the communication. That's all. Yes, you will improve by doing that. Another reason not to ask for error correction. It doesn't work. It is not effective. It does not work. Lots and lots and lots of research about this. I'm not a researcher, so I'm not going to give you all the studies, but it doesn't work. So there's so many studies where they have people learning to speak English. They correct their mistakes again and again. Guess what? 1 month later, 3 months later, they're still making the same mistakes. It doesn't work. It's not effective. You improve by listening carefully, and gradually your English gets more and more native-like, more and more correct, more and more natural. When someone corrects your mistake, it just interrupts your thinking. It kind of is like a shock to you. It's a negative shock, and it destroys all the normal, real communication that's happening. And because you're focused on the conversation, your mind really doesn't register. It doesn't really use the information of the correction. It's not helpful. So no, don't do it. Okay, let's keep going with questions because you guys are asking lots of good ones. Okay, what is very important for fast improvement? Oh, you guys are addicted to speed no matter what I say. Okay, the rule, don't learn single words. You must practice during listening, reading, etc. This is the way you feel English speakers. Yes, all those 7 rules are designed to help you learn faster. You will learn faster using those 7 rules, focusing on listening, learning phrases instead of single words. But it still takes time. It's not instant, right? As you probably know, you've seen this. I see this the same with my Spanish learning. It's faster now, it's better now, I'm enjoying it more, but it's still not very good. My speaking, it's still gradual improvement. So it's fine to focus on speed somewhat, but if you focus on it too much, you will destroy your enjoyment. You will create a lot of stress for yourself, and that ultimately will hurt your improvement and will cause you to learn more slowly. This is how it works psychologically. I've seen it again and again and again. So yes, use the best methods you can and do what you can to improve as fast as possible, but the biggest secret to fast improvement is enjoyment. This is what Steve Kaufman said 2 weeks ago himself. He's learned 13 languages. Maybe he knows something. He said his #1 secret was enjoyment, just loving the process. He loves it when he's a beginner, he loves it when he's intermediate, and he loves it when he's advanced. He just loves reading and listening and learning and making little improvements. So he enjoys the process every little step. Big, big, big tip. I trust him on that because I found the same thing in many parts of life. Okay. Okay, another question about VIP program. How many lessons? So basically, it's similar to Power English. You get 2 full lesson sets each month, and then we do a little webinar like this almost every month with the VIP. The difference is in that webinar that VIP members can actually talk to me. We take the calls, and we can hear their voice, so get a little bit of speaking practice with me, and it's nice because we hear the members' voices, so it's great. I like that. Okay, more questions. Any more questions? I'm taking them now. A few more questions, and then we'll finish this extra bonus webinar for you. Again, thank you so much for helping with the survey that we sent out. It did help. Our internet programming guys and designers reviewed all of your answers. We found some good areas to improve, and slowly, gradually, step by step, we're making those improvements. So thank you. Your feedback, your input was very, very, very helpful to us. I appreciate that. Okay, so and if we don't get any more questions, then we'll finish this up. Let me just review very quickly, see if I missed any. Okay, I think we may have it. Okay, so last chance for questions. I'm going to post that here. Last chance for questions. Post them in the chat if you have them, because this is it. Now let me just finish up here by talking about what's happening with Effortless English, what's going on. I've mentioned several long-term projects, and some of them are having problems, some are continuing. One project is my book. That is definitely continuing. I have been busy recording new VIP lessons and will be busy doing that for the rest of the month. Next month I will finish my book, finally, and then we'll send it to the designer, the book, whatever they do. They format it and they design the cover and all that stuff. That will take several months. And then finally we'll publish it, hopefully, I don't know, October, something like that. We'll see. Another project, the public speaking course. This is a challenge. So originally I was making a public speaking course with my friend Aaron, who's also an English teacher. But that project has just sort of stalled. It has stopped. Aaron's very busy with his business, Deep English. I've been very busy with Effortless English. The website hasn't made any progress. So now I'm thinking I might just take the material I have and make it available to VIP members as a sort of bonus. Or the other option I might do is record some more material, just myself, and create my own course and sell it to Effortless English people. So we'll see about that. I'm waiting. Meanwhile, tomorrow on the Effortless English Show, I am talking about public speaking and presentations. So I'll give some free tips and free advice tomorrow. It's a big, big topic, which is why I want to do a whole course for it, public speaking. But I'll give a few tips tomorrow. Okay, so that was Julia's questions. When will you release the presentation course? So there you go. Okay, everyone else just saying thanks. Thanks for the webinar. Thanks for giving us energy. Okay. Ori asks, is it necessary to learn the 15 English vowel sounds? Well, you certainly need to learn them. Do you need to study them as individual pieces? I don't know, not necessarily. If you want to, if you enjoy that, you might focus on that a little bit for pronunciation, you know, practicing some vowel sounds that are difficult for you. You can do that. But often that can feel quite boring after a while. So a better approach, I find a more interesting way to practice pronunciation is just to copy your favorite actor or actress. So you just play one of their sentences and then you copy their emotion, you copy their speaking. You could even record yourself, compare your speaking to the actor's speaking. And then do this a little bit each day. That will help your pronunciation a lot. And it's generally more fun than just practicing individual vowel sounds, which for most people is quite boring. Okay, and we'll go. We've got a few more questions. Amit asks, I get bored listening to the same thing again and again. What to do? Yeah, that can happen to me too. So what you do is you just rotate your listening. So for example, I'm using Oscar's lessons, Unlimited Spanish Lessons. So I follow the same approach as Effortless English. So I want to listen to the lessons, every day for 1 week at least. But let's imagine that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I listen to the same lesson. And then Friday, I feel, I'm kind of bored with this lesson, bored of the same stories. So maybe on Friday, I'll take a break, and I'll listen to some other audio in Spanish, maybe an audio book. Maybe I'll review an old lesson. And then, what will I do? Then Saturday, I'll come back and I'll listen to that same lesson again, and Sunday and Monday again. So if you find, I'm getting really bored with something, then just put it to the side. Don't get rid of it totally. Don't forget it totally. Just put it to the side for 1 day or 2 days and listen to some other things, and then come back to that again and listen a few more times. And then, so you constantly kind of mix and play with your listening. So you get all of that repetition that you need, but you're not forcing yourself too much. So it's good to have several things that you kind of play with and rotate. You have your lessons that you're listening to, Power English or VIP or something. But then you also have some podcast stuff, like my podcast or other podcasts. You might have some audiobooks or little audio stories or something. And then you kind of mix them around so it keeps you interested. All right, I think that is the end, huh? Thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed this little bonus webinar. Thank you again, finally, for helping with our survey. Constant and never-ending improvement. I'm sort of preaching this to you a little bit, and I'm preaching it to you strongly because it's a problem I also have. I also want to go fast all the time. We all do. I also get very impatient. But I know logically, intellectually, and from experience that gradual, small, consistent improvement over time is the best way to achieve big success with almost anything. So focus on those small improvements. Thanks again. I had a great time talking to you. Thanks for your help, and I'll see you tomorrow. Join me on the Effortless English Show tomorrow. We'll talk about public speaking. Bye for now.